sharing knowledge, sharing their opinion about the Adwa war. ስለ አድዋ መነጋገር አለብን። ስለ አድዋ ሳንፈራ መነጋገር አለብን። ስለ አድዋ ያለንን ዕውቀት መነጋገር አለብን. As Joel said, today we can, it's not only knowing about the history, it's what we do about it now. In 2025, how do you act on it? Going around with the pride is not enough. We need to act. If it is unity that is needed, we need to be united. Enemy doesn't come from outside. Enemy is within ourselves. So when we wake up in the morning and face our challenges, we can use the strategy, leaning on Taitu like Menelik did. We can lean on one to support each other. We can lean on each other. We can't do it by ourselves. Our unity, our being, our existence, this is a proof. But then in our daily life, we have to be able to live it. So with that said, we will transition. This time we talked about people who come and speak will only get a chance to say their side of it, and then we have to pay attention. This time we will try to mix it up. So we do have Nebiat and Melat who will come and join me on stage here. We'll bring three chairs. If we can have 3 chairs, please, on stage. 3 chairs on stage, please. So we will have 3 chairs on stage, and then we'll just have a conversation. It's a panel discussion. And you guys, if you have any questions, you can ask questions too. If they're able to answer, they can answer it. So we'll have some type of discussion amongst ourselves so we can learn from one another. Again, God, if this gathering doesn't say anything to you, or if you don't leave with certain knowledge, something new you learned about Adwa and who we really are as human beings, then we didn't achieve our goal. So when we see next time, next year, we'll have more volunteers, we'll have more people who would like to talk about Adwa. Okay, so without further ado, I will go to our, we don't want to line up like that. Okay, so who? Marcos. Oh. So if you can please call the youth. I see them on the grass right there. If you can ask them to come and join us, because really this is for them, for the next generation. As you heard it from Joel, Prince Joel, and then Seleshi, we already know some of it. But there are some young people who don't know nothing about Adwa. And it's really our mistake. Right? So without politicizing it, we can learn a lot from it. Okay? So we have some questions that we will share. We have 2 mics. So first, I'll allow them to introduce themselves, and then how long they've been here in the United States. So I'll start with Nebiat.
Hello. Okay. Hello. Can you guys hear me now? Okay.
Check.
Yeah, try moving.
Oh yeah.
It might be
Maybe.
because it's working on his side.
It seems to be cutting. ወይ ጮክ ብዬ ልናገር እንዴ? Okay. How about now? Yeah. It's okay. Seems like it's fixing now, maybe. All right. So first and foremost, I want to thank Ato Bakada Damise for the invitation, Ationas, the community here in LA for organizing this event and for extending an invitation and opportunity to speak. in regards to the 129th victory at the Battle of Adwa. So I was born and raised in the United States. I've spent some time in Ethiopia, so I do speak Amharic fluently, and have been involved in several cultural and social-based initiatives. I was behind the initiative to build a statue of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie in front of the African Union building, headquarters in Addis Ababa. We were able to inaugurate that amongst members of the imperial family. And I have various other initiatives that I'm working on to promote and advance the interests of Ethiopianism. So.
My name is Melat Bakala. I am Bakala Demisse's daughter. I have been in the United States since I was 3 years old. I have worked in the community doing all sorts of things, but mainly Habesha Networks, which is my organization. We're a community organization that is trying to connect the global Habesha diaspora. And on top of that, I have a consulting firm and I work for Free Wheelchair Mission.
So we have to constantly stay engaged because we are dedicating our time so we can learn from one another. So I'll start with you, Nebat. When you and I talked, by the way, can you imagine he was born and raised here and he left me a voicemail. And his voicemail was, Ato Jonas Ndemen Alu. Can you please clap for that? And when I talked to him, I said, Nde, lemden no antu alkein. And I said, that's our tradition. When you don't know someone, you approach someone antu tablo. Then you ask for permission, and then when you meet the person, then you can go and say anta. So I asked him, we never met before, so I asked him, literally, I got up from my chair, right? Because I was scared who I was talking to. I didn't know he was born and raised here. I thought he just came from Ethiopia. So he said, no, it's okay, Antaveling. Then it was at ease. Then we talked. So that really shows you, someone who was born and raised here, the first thing that comes from his andevet with his inner self is to live a message saying, Ato Jonas Ndemen Alu. That really impressed me. So thank you, Nebiat, for that. Okay. So, and we talked about Adwa, and he said he has a lot of knowledge about Adwa and then other things that he was involved in the Ethiopian community. So I asked him, okay, then I might ask you about maybe 4 or 5 questions about Adwa, but really, he will tell us, the question that I will ask him will really tell us the impact it has on the region itself, right? So, Nebiat, in your thoughts, once Adwa happened, what was really the impact on the region, or what happened in Africa?
Thank you very much. I think Prince Joel touched upon it and other speakers as well. It was really a pivotal moment for not only Ethiopians, but for Africans as well, and really for all freedom-loving people. It really inspired various liberation movements throughout Africa. And a lot of people really coalesced under the banner of Ethiopianism. It inspired Pan-Africanism itself. In fact, the victory happened in 1896. It was in 1897 that Pan-Africanism was coined. So the notion that black people shared a common destiny and could come together to defeat white imperialism. Ethiopia was a living example of that, and that was accomplished under the leadership of Emperor Menelik, Empress Taitu, and several other members of the monarchy and patriots and the Ethiopian people. So that's critical. I think by the same token, it really sent shockwaves throughout Europe. Italy spent the 40 years really building up their military capacity to avenge the defeat that happened in Adwa. And they came back under leadership of Emperor Haile Selassie in 1935. It created a rift, I know, in Italy that led to fascism and Nazism. But I would say the pivotal focal point and contributions of the war really was around supporting liberation movements. And Ethiopia did a lot in that subsequent to the victory. I can go into more detail if you want, but I'll give you the opportunity to ask other questions.
Okay. All right. So thank you. So you see, this is what happened, right? So the way that it had an impact on the region is for us to start with Pan-Africanism, and then last week I think OAU was celebrated, EU was in Ethiopia again, and this is the start. Adwa is the start. Adwa is the start when we said that if we united, we're powerful. So we're striving. Maybe we're not there yet, but then we're striving. It has started. Okay, so fast forward, I'll bring you to Melat. Melat is my dear sister. You know, I always tell her that the fact that she's involved in so many things and trying to do a lot of things, and then at the end of the day, she does it for us, for Ethiopians. So I was telling her earlier, it's like, when we see you when doing this type of things, you inspire us. So it's not about only the satisfaction she gets or the fulfillment she gets from what she does, but the inspiration we get from her. I personally do that. And I always let her know that you doing the right thing shows us to ask ourselves and say, what am I supposed to do? She has a busy life, she's married, she lives her life like we all do. But then we see her getting involved in so many things, right? In community services, charity work and all that. So, but what I want to ask you, Melati, with this is, fast forward, yes, you were 3 when you came here, but what impact do you think Adwa has on so-called next generation?
I think the biggest impact I see that Adwa has, at least what I take from it, is that I love the aspect of us being so collective and having the unity to support each other and fight the war. And I feel like, especially nowadays, I think there's so much division within our community, and that's caused so many issues. And I think the biggest thing and the biggest takeaway from Adwa is the unity and the collective power that we do have when we work together and we accomplish something. And I think that mentality is something I would love for us to have, because the narrative hasn't been like that for quite some time. And I would love to see our community continue to look at what we did in the past and what we've accomplished, and look at the future and see what we can do together collectively.
You can clap anytime. Okay, then going back and forth. So we're 2025 now. I'm gonna ask Neviat, I'll go back again. Before Adwa War, you know, in your knowledge, the Europeans and mostly the Italians, what were their perspective about Ethiopia?
Well, I think generally speaking, most Europeans thought that Africa was a nation or a continent of uncivilized people. So initially they thought it would be a walk through Ethiopia, and that, you know, Ethiopians would surrender, they would be able to buy off Ethiopians and colonize the country. But what they didn't know was that, you know, in fact, they would send missionaries, they would come through corporations, through the guise of corporation and land purchase agreements as a precursor to trying to rule over the entire country. And this was a method they used. When missionaries came, you know, they were confronted with bigger crosses, more elaborate crosses in Ethiopia than what the Europeans had. This was a nation that had integrated, you know, Christianity as a state religion in the 4th century AD, which means it was integrated within the political structure. And Ethiopians were among the first adopters of Christianity as well. So that approach didn't work. They did come through land purchase agreements, you know, and were given an opportunity to enter and live peacefully amongst the people. But when it came to the Ethiopian sovereignty and Ethiopian independence, that was a non-negotiable. And Emperor Menelik was able to show, you know, his prowess militarily and otherwise through the victory.
Okay, Melati, you started Habesha Networks, and such an amazing organization. Can you please clap for Habesha Network? And such an amazing organization that reaches out to the youth, to the young adults, that bring people together, and now it's expanding. And the last time I saw it, I think you did something in Asmara or something in Ethiopia? Yes, or something that you will do. But she's touching everywhere. And it started somewhere, and I really never had a chance to ask her, why Habesha Network?
I think, as you guys can kind of tell, I come from a family of people of service, so I learned it from my parents. I think that's the example I would say. It's something innate to me because I grew up seeing them always be of service. And also, I just always knew that it was such a privilege to be Habesha and to be Ethiopian, and I didn't take it for granted. So I thought it's really important to keep the culture alive, and I see it within my friends and the communities I'm in. The culture is starting to go away. I mean, most of my friends can't speak Amaranya or Tigrinya or Orominya, none of the languages. We're losing, none of us know how to cook the food, unfortunately. Like, I mean, it's a lot of different things. So I think I saw an opportunity for us to, one, keep the culture alive, but I also saw things that were, concerning me in the community. There is so much issues with mental health, substance abuse, and different things that are happening. And I also have just wanted that collective community. I think I've been blessed enough to have a large network of people, and whatever I need, I know I have access to resources, and people are always asking me, hey Melat, I need this, I need that. And I wanted to give people their own communities. I wanted them to have their own networks. So that was one of the main reasons why I started Habsha Networks.
Again, there is a reason why I ask these questions. It's because we can say it starts at Adwa, right? It starts about being Ethiopian. It starts about being a human being. It starts about caring. It says about facing your challenges and overcoming your challenges, right? So let's not see it only as war, as a victorious as we were, but let's not see it only as that. In our daily life, like she said, as Ethiopians, we have to be there for one another to defeat all the obstacles in life, right? So, Nabiat, if I say, what is one thing, I mean, I know Melat's touched upon it, but then what is one thing that you think here now in the modern world, as human beings, not only as Ethiopians, what is the one thing that we can learn, or maybe 2-3 things that we can learn from Adwa in this century?
Thank you. I think it was, I'll give credit to Tamang Bayen actually, who's a good friend of mine. When he was asked to speak about Adwa, he said, Adwa malet, የአንድነት ድል ዋጋ ማለት ነው አለ. And now it was I think that sums up the victory, because when we come together, there's nothing that we really can't achieve. And I want to also elaborate on the earlier question, if I may, because what Adwa was able to accomplish is amazing. It didn't only inspire and galvanize Ethiopians, but even on the Pan-African front, right? After Pan-Africanism, there was a Pan-African conference in 1900 in London, in which Emperor Menelik was present through a proxy, through a Haitian aide-de-camp or a personal assistant of his who actually lived in Ethiopia. That then influenced, African Americans to come together. Many African nations adopted the green, yellow, red tricolor flags. Over 17 or 18 countries adopted the Ethiopian tricolors after independence as a symbol of ascertaining their own, independence and sovereignty and freedom as free people. And it all points back to Adwa. Emperor Haile Selassie was able to follow in that path, and not only it was beyond just the Ethiopian victory, right? The emperor was able to establish the Organization of African Unity, and he was able to negotiate peace treaties amongst several African nations. There was a Pan-African scholarship in the 50s by Emperor Haile Selassie, where various people throughout Africa came to learn, and whose education, and they were also given a stipend. And he did this to foster a sense of fraternity amongst African people. The OAU itself, existed as a body, right, to help convene Africans so they could discuss various political, social, and economic issues. The organization, the African Development Bank, which was established in 1964 after the OAU, was designed so Africans could have a financial arm or outlet to promote trade and commerce amongst each other. In 1935, moving back, actually when Italy invaded Ethiopia for a second time, African Americans in this country organized to actually fight to liberate Ethiopia from Italian rule through the Ethiopian World Federation. Mind you, this was established vis-a-vis Dr. Malaku Bayan at the request of Emperor Haile Selassie. So he was organizing through a physician and relative of his in America to organize African Americans to help liberate Ethiopia, while the emperor was in Europe engaging in diplomatic efforts. And it was because of the victory at Adwa that Ethiopia was able to represent itself as a sovereign nation, as opposed to other African countries who had to conduct their diplomacy through their colonial masters. So this enabled Emperor Haile Selassie himself to actually advocate and fight for the freedom of Ethiopia, which he was able to do. And he just didn't stop at Adwa. He was able to actually reunify Eritreans with their mother nation, Ethiopia. So I can elaborate more and more, but I think this kind of encapsulates the contributions that were made as a result of that. And it all points back to the victory at Adwa. So today, I think, collectively, I mean, if we can come together, I don't think there's anything that really would hold us at bay, right? I mean, if we can put away our differences, like the other Ethiopian warriors or lords or kings, provincial kings were able to do during the time of Adwa, and identify a common objective and goal, right? Putting minor differences aside and fighting for the greater good. If you do that, that's a formula for success.
All right, thank you. And as I said earlier, Melat and both of them, they do community services. They go beyond themselves and do it. And I know Melat for sure does that. So, Melat, how does, for example, if I want to say, you know what, I want to do something. And like you just told us about Abasha Network. And I know that there is a program that you're in about providing wheelchair to Ethiopia and so on, right? So, and then you just went to Ethiopia and came back. How do you stay motivated, even though there are so many obstacles in community service and doing charity and being the leader of that, We can be on the side and clap, but then when we really get into it, it's hard. So how do you keep yourself motivated to do more and to be engaged more in the community?
I think it's really important the community you keep around you. So I have so many like-minded friends who are here who do this work with me. So it's not something that I'm doing by myself. I know I have people who are encouraging me constantly, who are telling me, hey, we should try this, we should do this, but not me doing it by myself. It's a collective. So I think the important thing is who you keep around you, the people you communicate with. I try to do a lot of research. I don't assume I know everything, so I try to get smart people who know better than me to work alongside with me and leave the competition, all that stuff out the door, and really try to make a collective effort of trying to do things together. And in my daily life, I try to keep being Ethiopian top of mind. So all of my services that I get or anything that I do, I make sure. So from my doctor to my mechanic to my tax guy, they're all Ethiopian. I make sure that everything I'm doing in my life is constantly providing for our communities and making sure our community is a part of my life. And in regards to Free Wheelchair Mission, when I first started there, we weren't serving in Ethiopia. So that was my goal, to make sure that we were going to go to Ethiopia. And any job I've ever been in is how is this going to serve my community? How can I make sure we're going to get something from this? And that was my goal, was to make sure we were going to get wheelchairs and medical supplies in Ethiopia. And I was able to accomplish that with many people who donated and supported and made sure that I could do that. So, yeah.
Nemet, so we have all this pride, right? So we come in this country, you were born here, and then you talk about Adwa, and then you tell your children, I have 2 daughters, I tell them about Adwa and so on, but then the reality about Ethiopia is not what we want it to be, right? So how do you compensate that? So to say, yes, this is where all started, we are amazing people as Ethiopians, but then our children will look at it and say, oh, your country is still a third world country. Oh, this is just, this is the poorest country in the world. What I hear on the news is not right. So how do you compensate it? How do you balance it when you are here in the United States?
That's a very good question. I'll say this, in as much as the victory at the Battle of Adwa brought admiration and adoration to Emperor Menelik. Hello. Yeah, I think it's back on. Okay. And as much as it brought admiration to Emperor Menelik, I think it also, right, the powers that wanted to colonize Ethiopia and dismantle the Ethiopian state also used the victory against the interests of Ethiopianism, right? So Emperor Menelik was vilified as a result by European powers to a certain extent, and also by internal enemies of the state, so to speak. So for me, the recipe really is reconciling with our history. I mean, we heard from Prince Joel earlier, he's a great grandson of the emperor, right? This is a monarchy that represents 3,000 years of Ethiopian history. It's a monarchy that led Ethiopian troops and Ethiopian people to victory at Adwa. And we lost that. So I think there is a point to be made when these difficult questions arise, but I think we can overcome these challenges by looking back in terms of who we were, and then looking forward in terms of reconciling, where we went wrong, and how we can build upon what we had, because I think that's what will restore glory and pride to Ethiopians.
Yeah. I mean, we all live in America and it's a very complex place. So I think no matter where you are, when you're thinking about even Ethiopia, of course we're conflicted on what we're seeing and what we want for the country. But I think just kind of being on the sideline is not going to help it. So I don't like to complain, and I think a lot of people, we all just kind of complain about it but not do anything about it. So I think the importance is us trying to get active and engaged in our communities. If we want to see certain things, then we've got to be about it and go do it.
Last thing that you have? That's all? Okay, say thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it was a pleasure to be here, and happy to be here. Thank you so much.
I'm going to do a plug for Habesha Network. So for those of you who don't already follow us on social media or our YouTube page, our website, please connect with us. We're actually all ages. We're not just for the young, and I'm not that young, so this is an all age group, and we want everyone to come. We want everyone to support our efforts, and we do trips back to Ethiopia and Eritrea, and we do things locally here in Los Angeles and Orange County. So please come to our events, support us, sponsor us. We always need donations, so please connect with us.
We really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. So this is what happened. One time I texted Melat and I said, no, I'm too old for Habesha Network. And she said, no way, nobody's old for Habesha Network. We need to network. We need to come together, okay? So we do have a next speaker. His name is Marcos. Marcos, can you come to the stage, please? Marcos.